Welcome back to another sunny edition of the Forts Athletics Life and Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Charles Inferna. Where at Forts Athletics, we equip coaches and athletes with the tools they seek out in order to achieve their unique and specific goals. We're recording here Monday, May 9th, on their way to school, 2022. And if you listen to the last episode about our conference championship recap, you'll hear that I was really proud. I still am proud. I'm really excited about how well our athletes competed. Not so much with distances. I mean, those are great, but how well they supported each other in competition. And track athletes came up to watch our throwers in the throws area. Throwers went down to the track when we were done throwing to watch their teammates compete in their respective running events. And yesterday, when I was just looking through old results, I pulled up Dylan's championship outcomes from last year, 2021, and how well he threw the shot, discus, and hammer. Now, granted, last year it was all in the same day, but take that for what you will. So last year, May 8th, 2021, Dylan threw the shot about 11:45. Through the hammer 44, and the discus 43 meters. So third and second. Third in the discus, third in the shot, I believe, second in the hammer to his own teammate. And thinking about how well he threw this past weekend, and how much someone can accomplish in one calendar year. So from last year's Outdoor Conference Championships, we competed in 2 additional meets. Dylan PR'd in the hammer at our regional meet, 49 meters. Through the discus, 46.16 last year. So basically in about a calendar year, from conference to conference, Dylan's put on about, he PR'd in the shot put, so he put the shot about 3 meters farther than he did last year. Discus, like an astonishing 8 meters. And the same thing with the hammer. And he didn't PR in the hammer, but he PR'd in the shot put and PR'd in the discus. But what I really want to talk about is, in 1 year, how much one can accomplish if they set their sights on something that they really want to do. And I shared that post yesterday, and I wrote a really long caption on Instagram about it. But I think it's really important for others to see that, the old adage of you become an overnight success after 10 years of putting in the work seems fitting in the track and field world, where people don't usually show up and have these extraordinary performances and just show up one day and the magic appears. That there are thousands and thousands of hours and reps of work that happen before that breakthrough performance. And I think sometimes younger athletes get this impression that, well, if I just work really hard for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'm going to master everything and it's going to go wonderful. And that's not always necessarily the case, especially if you don't set your sights more longer term. Having a short-term mindset is a recipe to cause burnout, frustration, doubt, and just not real good feelings, lack of confidence, if we don't achieve our goal in a very short amount of time. And I was talking to Dylan about this on Saturday after the hammer competition of wow, look at how far you've come in a year and what you've overcome and accomplished. And the overcome the adversity for all of our athletes around this time is classes and finals. He's a senior, so he's graduating next week. He has a job lined up already as an engineer. So I can empathize with the rigors of academics. But to maintain such a high level of throwing and competitive balance with maintaining like a GPA, relationships, like the whole senior year, like social, like all those different things play a role in everything. And sometimes when we see the big breakout performances, we don't see all of the trials and tribulations in practice of all the missed throws, or all the caged throws, and all the frustration that comes from working one or two specific cues for weeks on end to try and get where we want to go. And then all of that work that nobody sees comes to fruition on meet day when everyone sees it, right? So it's just really, really interesting when we just take all of that into consideration. And that's why I have to sit back sometimes and I just admire what our athletes are going through right now, not just with finals, but just life stuff. Like, I never had really any conversations with any track coach in college about life. We never really talked about academics, although Fredonia talked to me about academics, not so much a track coach. But it really wasn't until I had Coach Barr my senior year that we actually talked about like student teaching and like how that was affecting or not affecting practice. And we never really talked about, or nobody really ever talked about, like rest and recovery with me and what I could do, even though I was basically on my feet in school all day my senior year, student teaching. So I really commend our athletes for putting forth their best athletic efforts while also trying to manage every other facet of their life and try and be successful at it. Where Doc Phillips at Fredonia used to say, you have your social life, you have your academic life, and you have your track life. And you can only be good at two things. So pick, accordingly. And I aimed for track and social and really put academics on the back burner. But if you look at it as a whole, it really just, I don't know. I really don't know how they get through some of the things that they get through. We offer as much help and support as possible when it comes to, training or life, or just trying to navigate those day-to-day endeavors for our athletes. But I just wanted to share a kudos to Dylan about really a solid year of hard work. What could happen, and it seems like a long time, but I mean it really isn't, right? The days are long and the years are short. And he's graduating in a couple years, or in a couple weeks rather. And like a lot of our athletes at Alfred State, where we only have 2-year programs, they're already halfway done. And they have one more year left of competition before a majority of our athletes graduate with their 2-year degrees, and they go on to more specific, like trade school type programs. And they don't use the rest of their eligibility, their other 2 years. So when you think about the 10,000 hour rule and how long it actually takes maybe to become an expert in something, you tie that a little bit into and blend it with Andres Ericsson's like deliberate practice model, where if you are focused and dedicated to specific aspects of learning a new trade, and you get feedback and you apply that feedback into your next round of, let's say, practice sessions for track, you'll be able to expedite that 10,000 hour rule if you're diligent with what you're doing when you're doing it. Taking reps just to take reps really isn't going to solve a lot. If you're just taking 10 throws, whether you're not really into it, that's not going to help as much as if you take 5 really focused and detail-oriented throws where you're working on a specific facet of your technique in order to master a cue that's going to elevate your competition when it's meet day. So it's really interesting to share that sometimes it takes a little longer, or in this case about about a year to kind of figure out what we're doing. But for those younger athletes who might see that and say, wow, like that just takes a long time, I'm not patient enough. Well, if you're not patient enough to do it now, when are you going to be patient enough to do it later? Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Force Athletics Life and Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Charles Inferna, and have a great day.